where a woman came up to me and said, I'm from a town in Mexico where 1 in 10 women is killed, like by someone they know. So when Wally's being followed in the opening scenes, it was very triggering for me and very stressful. And I was like, I'm sorry. And then she said, Can we have a selfie? And I'm like, What?
It is wonderful to chat with you again.
Likewise. Thanks for being interested a second time.
No, the film is awesome. The film is so great, and it's still it. Of course, we spoke a couple of years ago for
Yep.
Compulsus when it was on its festival run. But so here we are again, and it's finally getting into theaters, which is exciting.
Yeah, and like unexpected. At a certain point, you're like, how long can a movie exist before it comes out theatrically? And in the US, you'd be like, oh, they're sitting on it for some reason. It's bad. And it's like for us, it's just like, can someone help us? And it just took a while for Vortex to come on board.
I was about to ask you about the journey. Was that really what it was? We were just waiting for the funding. Is that what?
Yeah. So the Canadian film is an odd landscape where there are only a handful of distributors. There are a lot more movies than distributors, and there are a lot more Hollywood screens than Canadian screens. Something that changed the Canadian music industry was the creation of Canadian content, where it's like radio stations were mandated that they had to play a certain percentage of Canadian music, and it really changed everything. If we would do that with film, oh boy. But they're not theaters are not mandated to play Canadian film at all. It's tough, and it's also tough to get Canadians out to theaters to see Canadian movies because they're like, "Why? Joker 2 just opened. Why would I see your thing?" And it's a fair question, but yeah, it's just a tough landscape. So for us, we did a festival run that basically ended at home. We got to play. We have this little theater here called Carbon Arc, which is like trying to keep the independent repertory cinema alive in Halifax. It's actually in the basement of the Museum of Natural History, so it's not a proper functioning cinema that runs constantly. It's just sort of like on the weekends. And so we had a really nice run where we went from Sunny Bunny, which is a queer film festival in Kiev. So literally during a war, Kiev, Truro Pride here in Nova Scotia, and then home at Carbon Arc. So our festival run was about a year and a half. And then the Vortex deal took a little while to we finished shooting a second film in the time that it took us to do that deal.
Which I want to hear about. But I mean, now you've taken Compulsus out on the road, and it's finally hitting theaters. What has the response been? What have audiences been saying to you?
It's been quite mixed. I'm not a letterbox person on purpose. I don't think it's a good place for me to be. And it's funny because I do have a friend that also makes films, and he'll be like, just give it a few weeks, but you should go check out the letterbox reviews. And I'm like, okay, so there's like shitty ones on the top. And then maybe there's some nice ones below. I don't really engage in that, but yeah, when we went to Fantasia, I had two very sobering things happened where a woman came up to me and said, I'm from a town in Mexico where 1 in 10 women is killed, like by someone they know. So when Wally's being followed in the opening scenes, it was very triggering for me and very stressful. And I was like, I'm sorry. And then she said, Can we have a selfie? And I'm like, What? Okay. And then later, a guy came up to us. We were kind of just like having drinks with the programming team, and a guy came up to us and said, my name, I don't remember his name, but he said, My cousin was murdered by her husband, who was an NFL player. It was in the news. And I know she sent me here to watch this movie tonight. And it was just like things like that where I thought, oh, I'm not actually equipped to deal with this kind of reaction. Like it's like, do you support vigilantism? Is a fair question, but like to have people connect to it on like such a deep level like that was really it was haunting in a way, but it was also really it was nice because it's like okay, this thing that sometimes just feels like who like, I often feel like who let me make this thing anyway. It's like, oh no, there was a reason it connected with people.
Well, it's funny because when we go see Batman, I was
Hmm.
thinking about this watching it. We watch Batman, nobody sits there in general and says, "Oh, he really shouldn't have done that,
Yeah.
you know. And with this film, I mean, she's not a superhero, but she kind of is to the locals.
Yeah.
It really is interesting that way. I wondered how women watching it would react, because I mean, it's you really connect with her journey and her passion for, I don't want to say passion for killing, but passion for supporting the women that she knows in this way.
Totally. And I think the piece with our movie that people that makes people uncomfortable is that she doesn't know for sure. You know what I mean? When you're watching a superhero movie, you like see a bad guy do a bad thing. You're like, Batman should punch that guy. But it's like Wally's just like taking women's word for it and following up. And it's like, but we don't know. The girl could be lying. Maybe she's just taking revenge. So I think that's the part that makes it uncomfortable for people. You know, in addition to it being a woman doing it, it's just that she is motivated only by the word of these women that she believes without question. And then there's always that piece of, well, should we be believing them all the time?
Yeah, that's an interesting part of this too, because at what point is it a message, and at what point is it helping?
Yeah.
Sort of that balance in this film, which I think is really interesting.
Hmm.
I wanted to ask you too, and I don't know if we spoke about this last time, but I don't know if I noticed it last time. The bleeping of names.
Oh yeah.
I thought that was real. Rewatching the film as I did, I had forgotten that that was in there, and so many of the names were bleeped out. Which I know it's a fictional world, if you
Hmm.
will. I mean, it's not fictional ideas, but fictional world. So why do that? Why make that choice?
It was sort of one extra step to, we don't ever see the men's faces. It's the same
Yes.
guy playing all the guys. So that was one of the steps where it's like we're removing sort of male agency. It's sort of like a commentary on how often women are just bodies in other movies. You know, they're just like victims that are hurt, and you never know them, and you don't know anything about them, and you're not supposed to. So that's one way we did it. And then the other the bleeping of the names was like one more step to be like we're taking away the personhood of these men. One more step removed. And the funny part is, so I the names in the script they would change. Like they're like guys I hated personally, and then guys who just sucked. And then I would change them based on who was reading the script because I was like, oh, she's friends with him or she knows him or whatever. And then by the time we got to shooting, I was like, I don't know who knows anyone anymore. Like we can't change, I can't keep changing the names. And so we had a table read. They were in there, and then Nicole, my producer, gives me a call and she's like, "So we're taking the names out, right?" And I said, "What are you talking about?" She's like, "Well, I just told a lawyer that they weren't based on anyone." And I was like, "But we're bleeping them." And she said, "Well, what if the script gets out?" And I'm like, "Well, we would know." Anyway, so we ended almost all of them are pulled out. Two of them are faked. It's like,
Wow.
yeah, it's like I'm like that when she's with the staple gun one, that one's faked, and then there's another one that's fake too, and then one I left in. So it was a weird thing where it was like it was always the way it was. Like there was a note at the top of the script, like no men's faces will be seen, no men's names will be heard. And then it sort of evolved in this weird sort of boring legal way to a half result. It's like half the names are there, half the names are bleeped, and half of them are fake.
Honestly, I think one of the things I like about Compulsus is that, well, first of all, I love the tension of that. Like you said, there is just sort of like we're just, these men are just they're violent, but we don't have to see them because it doesn't matter who they are. We just know what they've
Hmm.
done or what we've been told they've been done. But there's a genuine sort of heat to this film that I think makes it noteworthy. And I know we've spoken about, I'm sure we've spoken about this before, but in case other people haven't seen or haven't heard from the film, with Compulsus, there's this really interesting tension too with Wally and her partner.
Yeah.
Um, and I wondered, in your perspective, if you were her partner, what you would
Mm.
do.
Lou was sort of a stand-in for me. Lou was originally a cop, and then a bunch of things happened where we were like, we don't really need cops in this story. And so she's just cop adjacent now. But she is the me. I am the one who would be like, we shouldn't do that. We're gonna get caught. I'm too anxious. I would be totally stressed out all the time. But then it's like, but finally I have a girlfriend. So it would be a conundrum. But like I can't run. So I would never join her. I'd be like, you can do it.
you,
Don't
you
tell
take the
me
step.
about it.
Yeah.
And I have a very recognizable voice. So people would know it was me. It wouldn't go well if I was involved.
You're just the one with the little flag cheering them on. Is that it?
Yeah.
Is what I'm hearing? Oh, okay.
Yeah, like one of those clappers. Yeah,
That's
that's
right.
it.
From the dollar store, you're going like this and it's making the noise.
Yeah.
Right. Honestly, I'm so thrilled that it's coming to theaters. But Tara, I know you're working on another project, or you've finished another project. So
Yeah.
can you tell us about that too?
Sure, it's called Lakeview. This thing back here, this is like the giant sign that was on the bar in the movie. Then the art department's like, "Do you want this?" And I was like, "Sure." And it's so huge. It was such a mistake for me to bring it home. It just lives on this wall at the moment. Not even on the wall. I can't get it up. Yeah, it's an ensemble comedy about a girls' weekend celebrating a divorce. So Lesley, who plays Wally, is also the lead in that one too. And we have a handful of actors from the first movie that are in this movie, and Nicole Steves also produced it. And yeah, this time last year we were shooting it on the eastern shore of Nova Scotia. It was beautiful autumnal month, although it did snow on the last day. We had to shoot a scene out the window. It was like, come on, man. And it didn't snow again until like after Christmas, but just like that was the first snow was our last day. So yeah, we were premiered at home at the Atlantic International Film Festival, and we're starting to line up some festival stuff for the fall and for early next year.
Oh, that's really exciting. Looking forward to checking that one out. That sounds great.
Thanks. And starting this distributor conversation all over
All over
again.
again.
So
All over.
I'll see you in 2027, I guess.
Let's we'll book the
Book it
date.
in right now. Just
Book
book
it in
it in.
advance. I'm here. Just
Great. Me too.
send
Yeah.
me a Zoom link and we're good.
Sounds
Uh,
good.
so this honestly, I really appreciate the chance to chat with you again, Tara. The Compulsus is still great. Uh,
Thank you.
as we wrap up, what do you hope audiences take away from their experience in theaters with
Hmm.
Compulsus?
Well, it's interesting because there's sort of this is a really heightened time to be mad at men. You've got that horrible case in France with the husband that was hiring men to and letting them assault his wife. And that court case is happening. You've got all this stuff coming down with Diddy. And at the time, I remember when we were walking into Inside Out, it was like that was the week the Johnny Depp Amber Heard verdict came down. There's always something sort of large in the news to get you angrily fired up about it. So I do think if you have been following those horrible stories or any horrible stories, it's not a great time right now. I do think this will be a nice cathartic release for you because it's ultimately a fantasy movie. It's not fantasy. I don't mean fantasy in a genre sense. I mean in that it would probably never happen. But yeah, it had, and I think the ending is probably going to be a nice like fist bump for people as well.
I feel like this is one of those films that gives voice and gives voice back to people that have experienced assault and have or been oppressed, or it's just one of those films that I really think is strong in that regard. So thank you so much for the time again, Tara. I really do appreciate
Thank
it.
you. I really appreciate your support and wanting to chat about it again all this time later.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Have a great day.
Yeah, you too. Take care, Steve.
Thanks so much.